U.S. voters just elected Donald Trump as president. What is the feeling among the CCP leadership about this?
I don't think they're very happy about it because their preferred outcome was Vice President Harris. And I think it was largely because they viewed Trump as someone they could not control. You know, there are things that Trump does that the Chinese, particularly like. But there are a lot of things that he does that they don't like. The thing for them is that they cannot figure out what he's going to do next. They have, over the course of decades, have dealt with hostile American presidents, and they've dealt with them very well from their perspective because at least they thought they could at least predict what they would do. So they were comfortable. Trump makes them uncomfortable. And there's another aspect to it, and that is the Chinese people, regardless of Trump's policies, they like Trump. They like his openness, his freshness, his unscriptedness. And I think the Chinese leaders are very afraid of that. Because remember, the Communist Party in general, regardless of who is the president, believes it is in an existential struggle with the United States. And it believes that not because of anything we say or do, but because of who we are. You have an insecure regime in Beijing is worried about the inspirational impact of America's values and form of governance on the Chinese people. And in addition, they're now going to have to deal with Trump, who has done very well, by the way, in these informal popularity surveys in China. So they are really scared of the guy.
Now, that's interesting. I was going to ask, what is the sense of how your average Chinese person feels about Trump?
Yeah, we saw that in his first term, where the Chinese, you see comments on Chinese social media. Basically, they like the guy because he speaks his mind. It's not necessarily because they like what he says, but it's in contrast with, Hu Jintao and now Xi Jinping, who are entirely enclosed, entombed. They don't see the guy except in very controlled settings. And so this is just like a breath of fresh air for them. And so what makes Trump so attractive to the American people also makes him attractive to the Chinese people as well.
Now, that's very interesting because there are people in the U.S. who see Trump as a one-for-one comparison to the worst kind of dictators, Hitler, Stalin, Mussolini. But you're saying that people in China living under actual dictatorship, they see a contrast between Trump and their leaders.
Yeah. Yes. And by the way, in America, the rhetoric has just gotten so heated. We have seen Trump as president before. Remember, he's followed the Grover Cleveland path of being president twice, but not consecutively. So we've seen Trump. He didn't govern like a Hitler or whomever. This is just really ridiculous. The Chinese people, as you say, they've got a real Hitler-like figure. So it's really important for us to just make sure that we keep that in perspective. But yeah, I think that essentially you have the Chinese people just love the breath of fresh air. He is such a contrast to what they've been used to. They've had now. They've had 2 terms of Xi Jinping, now on his 3rd. They had 2 of Hu Jintao. And Jiang Zemin, he was only unscripted in front of foreigners. In front of the Chinese, he was pretty, sort of like this entombed figure. So, yeah, they like Trump.
I was thinking about Hu Jintao. He was almost as open and relatable as a block of wood.
Well, I remember, wasn't it in Dick Cheney's autobiography where he had a meeting with Hu Jintao and he had his handlers. Hu Jintao had handlers with him, making sure he didn't go off script.
Oh, it's just sort of like a block of wood has more life, like Matt, don't insult blocks of wood.
They're useful. You can do stuff with them.
Poor guy. I always think of that video of Hu Jintao that we had
found when he was very young.
Yeah, when he was maybe in his 40s or something like that. And just he was laughing and smiling.
A different person before crushed by communism.
But, you know,
Uh,
Chinese leaders have formaldehyde in their veins. You know, once they become, you know, general secretary, that's the way they are now expected to act among other senior party leaders.
I mean, I think that's really unfair. Saying they have formaldehyde in their veins implies that there's a heart.
Okay. Okay.
Well, well, you know what's creepy because you bring up formaldehyde is that Mao Zedong.
Yeah.
The last time I was in mainland China, and this was a while ago, and I think it's still there. It's Mao has been preserved for like 50 years
Yes.
in the middle of Tiananmen Square, and like his body is basically all yellowed and like in this fluid, the formaldehyde. It's like it's pretty shocking, and like there's still long lines. Like people line up to go in and see his.
Well, that's
his, like,
because they tried
slightly
to
rotting
replicate
corpse.
the Soviet mummification of Stalin, right?
It was
It
Lenin.
was Lenin. But they botched it. They didn't get it right.
Oh, you mean the CCP got it wrong?
Yeah. Because like Lenin is still pretty well preserved. Mao, it's awful.
It's waxed. I mean, and my dad
Yeah.
and I, we did that in the late 1980s. We actually stood in line and walked through and saw Mao's body. It was really gross.
I remember afterwards, there's like a gift shop at the like after you come
Exit
out of
through
the
the
line,
gift shop.
and then there's like Mao Zedong watches and like paraphernalia, and it's like it's a very weird like Mao would roll over in his formaldehyde if he saw that market capitalism.
I don't know. I mean, during the Cultural Revolution, you had lots of like Mao merch. Like,
I guess
you know what I mean?
they were just making
Yeah,
money off of foreigners.
Yeah.
That's not so much the topic of this.